Good morning, all the participants, and we have got panel members and also those who are participating, attending this conference online. Thank you for joining this session and welcome. The topic for this session here, we will be looking at cloud computing, and the topic for the session will be, in this case, cloud or on-premise. I know this is something that is lingering on everybody's mind when we're talking about the cloud, when we're looking at the situation that we are sitting on. And this session is motivated specifically because everybody is looking at options. And mainly the options that people are looking at is that, how do I do my investment on ICT infrastructure? And the investment in ICT infrastructure in this case, being driven by either one has to build real estate, and you have got brick and mortar, and you have got shiny metal in your data center to drive your business. Or alternatively, you're looking at just getting the services, either the services in this case being the ICT infrastructure services that you require, or you want an end-to-end where you just need a complete solution. So these are the realities of today. And I will be taking this session here by first having a presentation that will be coming from the colleagues from Amazon who are offering some of the services. And for this session, I will have one presenter, which is Clive Charlton. And this will take 15 minutes. And the second session will be looking at a panel. And the panel in this case will be looking at the options that one have. And we will be having Creswell, who will be looking at, from the user's perspective, what are the things that you take into the consideration when a business is faced with this dilemma of whether I want to go on cloud or whether I have to invest on-prem. And the second panel member will be Ofentse from Microsoft, and Ofentse will be looking at what are the possibilities, what is out there for us to be able to take into consideration when we consider these options here. So on that note, I will start first with taking the presentation from Clive. Clive, are you ready? And Clive will be giving us a presentation from Amazon Web Services. Clive, you can start your presentation and also switch on your camera so that my participants here can be able to see.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Sithole, and welcome everyone. Thank you very much. I am just going to share my screen and start my presentation. Are you able to see my presentation? Are you able to see my presentation now?
Yes, Clive, the presentation is up. You can proceed.
Okay, thank you very much. So welcome everyone. My name is Clive Charlton. I'm head of solution architecture for Sub-Saharan Africa in the public sector of AWS. I'd like to just do a short introduction of AWS cloud computing. And I think to start off is around the key messaging of cloud computing. You know, as a business leader, you need to focus on the strategic value drivers that are most important to your organization's success. That might be growing new revenue streams, increasing operational efficiency, lowering business risk, or all of the above. So to grow new revenue streams with AWS, you can rapidly test and iterate new ideas, create new products and services, and reduce your time to market. AWS makes collecting, interpreting, and learning from your customer data easier. So that makes for far better and faster decisions on how to improve your customer's experience and better their outcomes. Increasing operational efficiency when you move to AWS is really, really important. You realize business benefits beyond just infrastructure cost savings. IT and development staff can be more productive. You can experiment quickly. You gain new agility in financial, human, and technical resources to meet rapidly changing markets like we've seen in this year with COVID. But every industry has its unique sources of risks as well. And that can affect your supply chain, product quality, brand, financing, customers, and partners. And with AWS, with a comprehensive portfolio of services like analytics and machine learning solutions, you can detect and respond to those risks and help lower your overall business risk. So let's talk a little bit about the AWS Global Infrastructure. You see here a map of the world with our global infrastructure. We have 24 geographical regions, 1 local region, and 77 availability zones, and over 200 points of presence. So you might ask, what is an AWS region? So a region is a physical location in the world where we have multiple availability zones. And what is an availability zone? Each one consists of 1 or more discrete data centers, each with its own redundant power, networking, and connectivity, all housed in separate facilities. So this allows high availability, high scalability, and high fault tolerance in every region. So I thought this was an appropriate representation of the set of services that we have at AWS. It's too many to go through in one discussion. There are more than 275 services, but I thought it was an appropriate way to represent them, since this is a scientific community, and using the periodic table to represent that. In general terms, our services cover anything from security, networking, compute, analytics, machine learning, IoT, robotics, satellite, storage, and user computing, and more. So I thought I'd just give one very quick scenario, and this is a simple scenario. I mean, obviously, many customers have lots of different scenarios and solutions that they're deploying. But if we look at this image, on the left are all the data ingestion techniques, things like Kinesis for high volume streaming, direct connect for data transfer without traversing the internet, Snowball, and all coming into a central storage, which is Amazon Simple Storage Service, or S3, which is an object store, highly redundant and highly available. Of course, many other different types of storage available to you. In this scenario, we look at creating meta information around that with a key value store like DynamoDB that allows a searchable index with Elasticsearch. You could create services off that with an API gateway, or protected with identity and access management, or Cognito for mobile access. Looking at the various processing and analytics and machine learning all off the Amazon S3. So you could use that to create a data lake, for example. Use something like Amazon QuickSight for visualization, which is similar to something like Tableau, or Elastic MapReduce for processing and complex ETL processes. Redshift for columnar data warehouse. And all of this underpinned with security services like identity and access management or key management services. Speaking of security, here is just a very quick sample and small sample of some of the global security and compliance certifications that we have. So I'd call out the Cloud Security Alliance and PCI DSS compliance. GDPR is another one that'll be important to us, which is very similar to POPIA. These kind of compliance certificates are all available on request or through our artifacts portal. But operating in AWS, especially on your starting with the AWS journey, is important to use the partner network available to us, and also our AWS marketplace, where system integrators and the like offer pre-configured software packages on AWS that we've validated to run correctly on AWS. And 90% of Fortune 100 companies use an AWS partner or partner solutions. More than 300,000 active customers are using software from AWS Marketplace. And as of today, customers run more than 850 million hours of EC2, which is our compute service, per month for AWS Marketplace products. So some quite large numbers around there. I wanted to give a very quick introduction to high-performance computing on AWS as well. Here's a diagram of the different types of high-performance computing scenarios, either clustered or distributed grid scenarios, or heavy on data or light on data, and different kinds of workloads that might be in there. So things like computational fluid dynamics or deep learning, analog and digital simulations, or molecular modeling. All of these types of scenarios we have customer examples of running these. And with Amazon EC2, we provide a secure and resizable compute capacity that offers a wide range of EC2 instance types, anything from computer optimized or memory optimized to suit the different types of workloads you're running. With orchestration in high performance computing is your workload management in the cloud, making resource and job orchestration simple. AWS provides a fully managed service to enable you to focus more on job requests and output rather than provisioning or configuring and optimizing a cluster or a job scheduler. With storage, which is always an important element, AWS provides a native scale-out shared file storage service with Elastic File Service, EFS. This provides a file system interface and file system semantics. HPC applications can use AWS block storage offerings, EBC, or Amazon S3, which I mentioned earlier. In networking, AWS Network is designed for scale. Whether your applications require thousands of cores or one tightly coupled workload, hundreds of thousands of cores, or embarrassingly parallel or high throughput computing, or a mixture of both, AWS Network offers performance or high bandwidth and low latency and scalability. So AWS optimizes and custom builds their own hardware specifically for AWS infrastructure. Enhanced networking provides higher I/O performance and lower CPU utilization compared to some of the traditional virtualized network interfaces. So I wanted to draw some examples, and as I do through this talk. So an example is Hyrax Bioscience, which is a local company based right here in Cape Town. They developed a tool called Exotype, which is a genotyping tool where they used for HIV drug resistance testing. And what they were able to model is actually the genotype of the HIV virus. And that way start predicting which kind of drugs a patient would be resistant to. And they were able to do this with high performance computing on AWS. Another interesting area for cloud computing is machine learning. So in machine learning services, Amazon SageMaker is a fully managed service that provides every developer and data science with the ability to build, train, and deploy machine learning models at scale. It removes the complexity from each step of the machine learning workflow, so you can easily deploy machine learning use cases, anything from predictive maintenance to computer vision to predicting customer behaviors. The idea is to put machine learning in the hands of every developer. AI services offer pre-trained AI services, ready-made intelligence for your applications and workflows to help you improve business outcomes. So based on the same technology used to power our own Amazon business, you can build AI-powered applications, things like Amazon Lex for speech, Amazon Comprehend, Amazon Forecast for predictive analytics, Amazon Textract for text-to-speech, just to name a few. There's a whole range of them. All the deep learning frameworks that you might be familiar with, like TensorFlow, PyTorch, Apache MXNet, and all of the popular frameworks that you might experiment with or use today are available in AWS. So you can port your models directly into AWS without having to change the framework that you use and familiar with. Getting started with AWS Machine Learning Solution Labs helps you pair your team with our solution labs to get you going quickly with machine learning. And then we've developed some learning tools that make learning, machine learning and AI on AWS much easier. Things like the AWS Deep Racer, AWS Deep Lens, and Deep Composer. So an example of that, another local example, is GovChat, where GovChat became the official platform for citizen engagement with the South African government in 2018. And to date, GovChat has let about 50 million South Africans communicate with the government via mobile handsets and platforms like Facebook and WhatsApp. So in the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the South African government appointed GovChat to help coordinate some of its responses. GovChat provided several departments with a channel to share information on services like water and electricity. One in particular was SASSA, where citizens could apply for temporary social relief grant. And they were able to deploy this in just a matter of days. I think it was 2 days, in fact, to deploy the solution, where we've handled millions of customer requests within the week. And finally, just research on AWS. I think in terms of the scientific community, this is important for us. So working with research labs and institutions around the world, we're able to help researchers process complex workloads. AWS provides a cost-effective and scalable storage, compute, database capability to accelerate time to science. We have an AWS Cloud Credits for Research program. The idea is to provide credits to allow customers to build cloud-hosted, publicly available science-as-a-service applications or software tools to facilitate their future research and the research of their communities, perform proof of concept or benchmark tests, evaluating the efficacy of moving research workloads or open data sets to the cloud, and train a broader community on the usage of cloud for research workloads via workshops and tutorial and the like.
Thank you, Clive. We can wrap up now.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just one last word on open data on AWS, where we encourage the democratization of data. So we will host data for free or at our cost to encourage the sharing of data to facilitate research. And two good examples of that are Group on Earth Observations and Digital Earth Africa, where we're sharing satellite imagery for free for the use of research networks. So please feel free to reach out to me. My email address is there on the screen. And I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'll hand back to you, Dr. Sithole. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Clive, and you can stop sharing your screen. And all the participants, listeners, you have got the contact for Clive. We will be able to follow up with Clive through this presentation. Thank you for a very good overview of what we can be able to offer on the cloud. And I take that our listeners here will be able to take advantage of all these services. Now we're moving on to the second part of this session. And the second part of this session, as I promised, it's on a panel that will be looking at the various options that one has when you consider whether you have to move your applications on the cloud or you have to keep them in your premise. So Creswell Dupree will be giving us a perspective from a user. And Creswell is working with the Department of Higher Education and Training as an advisor on ICT. And I think he will be the right person to give us the challenges that the education system realized during the pandemic, where a lot of options had to be made on how we can be able to facilitate education. Creswell, you can proceed with your presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sithole. Let me just share my screen quickly. And let me execute that. Okay, Dr. Sithole, can you just confirm that you can see my slide deck?
Yes, your slides are clear.
Perfect, perfect. So Creswell Dupree, as Dr. Sithole introduced me, I'm an ICT advisor. And in particular, from a DED perspective, I'm part of the macro infrastructure framework team that provisions and the IT component of that provisions IT infrastructure or looks at IT infrastructure at higher education institutions. So a little bit of background. All the universities pretty much are looking at have some sort of a digital optimization or digital transformation initiative on their agenda. I define digital optimization as the improvement of existing business processes and digital transformation then as using technology to execute new mandates. So these initiatives would fundamentally then change the way traditional university services are delivered. And I think that it also involves a key component, and that is encouraging digital competence across the universities. And these are for students, academics, managers, and administrators. This has then necessitated a shift from traditional investments to projects that drive the digital agenda. So some lessons learned from COVID-19. Number one, the significance and importance of digital enablement, optimization and transformation was really pushed to the top of the agenda. Universities needed to rethink their work from home, teach from home, which then, and how they were going to use their future spaces. So digital competence of the academics and students to participate online, those ones needed to be new interventions. In other words, how-tos. This is how you get into your platforms. This is what you do. And there's an overall competence of digital citizenship in there. Universities then also were forced to move their critical services to cloud or hosted platforms. And I mean, those who did not do that before struggled a little bit. Those who had been engaging on a cloud strategy found it a little bit easier to deploy at scale. And then universities with traditional data centers with limited capacity to scale found themselves at a disadvantage. So number one, all of a sudden there were equipment shortages in the country due to COVID regulations and due to lockdown, and then physical technical resources on campus couldn't get to campuses as well. So the provision of mobile computing devices we saw was quite big, as well as connectivity. And universities then found themselves in a position that they needed to fast-track their cloud adoption strategies and to develop new ones in the absence for those universities who did not have that. two pertinent trends, I believe, came to the fore. Number one, time to value. In other words, how quickly does it take the IT departments to go from a request business requirement to actually delivering it? And that has become a key theme in moving to cloud adoption. And it also meant that universities needed to either use things like software as a service, infrastructure as a service, or platforms as a service. There's also been a move from CapEx to an OpEx model. And that means shifting those big, heavy CapEx investments in lieu of turnkey. While I use the solution, I will pay for a type of value. And that becomes necessary to ensure time to value. So implications on funding ICT infrastructure, then, especially from the macro infrastructure framework team perspective, is that these are typically the requirements or all the elements that needs to be taken into effect. So the model, this particular traditional model of get the hardware, sort out the cooling, backup and continuity, installation and config, in-house performance monitoring, security concerns, licensing costs, those sorts of elements. That traditional model was being challenged by the sheer rate of technological change and user demand. So a further constraint is that in this traditional model is that it takes, to deliver the business value, it takes quite a bit of time. The model is also dependent on ensuring future scalability is built into the design of the solution, and that is becoming more and more difficult. So in other words, I'm going to buy this big SAN storage area network, I'm going to buy my server infrastructure, and I need to at the same time have this glass ball that I'm starting to look at the future to predict how much must I scale for going forward, which is becoming a challenge. And universities are struggling to retain and train highly skilled ICT human resources. The ICT skills required, because technology changes quite often. And the pertinent question then becomes is, what do I as a university invest in when it comes to ICT staff? Do I invest in them being able to monitor TIN, or do I invest in the skills that's required to actually solve business problems or university problems? Which then means, okay, I need to invest in modern skills, the ability to turn on cloud services as I need them, as well as making sure that my academics and my students are on par with using the technology. So universities typically require this model. So the one thing in this traditional model that would probably remain is networking. So it begs the question, what do I need to keep in my data center? And what services will be provided from my data center? And at this point in time, one of the key things that I can think of is just making sure that there's good connectivity across campus to consume services that either sit in my data center or sit anywhere in the cloud-based services. So a modern model for servicing provision by means of cloud-based hosted services means that I'm no longer worried. I no longer employ people to watch TIN. I no longer focus on efforts on watching TIN, hardware, servers in storage. My power and cooling component I shift away. The installation and configuration cost, and this is usually because some universities have the capability of quickly procuring, but traditionally from procurement all the way to the service is active, it's live, it's actually adding to business value. That process usually takes 6 to 8 months. So it takes quite a bit of time. Where here you're looking at from a time to value perspective, some of these services we can turn on within 1 to 3 weeks, and they're available. And it also creates opportunity to improve service delivery as ICT staff are freed from watching hardware now to providing just-in-time solutions. It sort of gives the ICT team that broker feeling of, I'll broker a service for you very quickly because I have the backing of the cloud providers in the back end. So what are some of the priorities that universities are looking at going forward? And these are typically the types of platforms that we need quick solutions for. So service delivery platforms that improve the overall administration and efficiency of the universities. Digital optimization platforms that enable improved efficiency of resources. And those are typically workflow type automated processes, but the quick ability of using low code to do that. Collaboration platforms that enable enhanced teaching and learning. And a key thing is space allocation. So space allocation, that's becoming more and more important at universities. And a rethink, absolute rethink in how space is being utilized at universities, especially when we started seeing the university became this place where there were no students and no staff for a month or two. And that's becoming important. And then obviously, the traditional telephony infrastructure from a collaboration platform perspective, people are now moving, and there's this move away from your typical copper traditional telephone infrastructure to modern scalable collaborative systems. And I mean, we're using that for this for the conference. And then technology that enables safer campuses, infrastructure that supports cybersecurity, infrastructure and platforms that support modernizing university spaces for e-learning, such as audiovisual infrastructure, as well as the associated collaborative platforms. Platforms that support efficient building management, as well as space optimization that I mentioned earlier. And their key component is going to be IoT going forward. But IoT then in building IoT data repositories or aggregators on campus is probably, in my view, not that cost effective. There are cloud-based services that can do that much more quicker, and projects that improve network connectivity for universities, such as core data infrastructure, Wi-Fi provisioning. These are the types of ICT projects that requires, and I think this particular one, projects that improve network connectivity of universities, such as core data centers, those are pretty much the one where I see still a need for the traditional infrastructure funded, CapEx funded model. But the other services are pretty much that one, and the last one, ICT resilience. And resilience now means, do I need to build 2 data centers physically, or do I have a physical data center and I have a cloud-based data center where I fail over my services too? So these are some of the projects and priorities. And I'm gonna leave it there and wrap up. Thanks so much, Dr. Sithole.
Thank you, Creswell. I think the message is very loud and clear from the user's perspective, some of the challenges that we have to face. And now on our second talk in this panel, we have Ofentse from Microsoft. And I take that Ofentse, you will be able to address some of the challenges that Creswell has presented. So Ofentse, if you can share your presentation and get ready. Ofentse is an ICT strategy architect and advisor, a digital advisor at Microsoft. Ofentse, stage is yours.
Great, and good morning to everybody. Can you please confirm if you can see my screen and if I'm audible?
Yes, I can hear you, Ofentse, and I can see your screen. Proceed.
Great, thank you for this time. I see that our time is limited, so I will be brief. My name is Ofentse Ramolodi, and as a good doctor has just introduced me, I'm a digital advisor in Microsoft Consulting Services, particularly looking after some of the public sector accounts at the provincial level. So I think the experience that I'll be talking about is really kind of how we have helped both employees and citizens within our different provinces to be able to help them to achieve their ambitions to digitally transform, right? Okay. Here we go. So how do we think about transformation, right? And why the need for transformation? I think the recent occurrences of the COVID disaster and also the subsequent lockdowns that have led to, I guess, like this need for us to react in ways that we couldn't have imagined before, thinking about different ways of working, thinking about different ways of communicating, thinking about how do we change our lives really to be able to react to the pandemic, right? Has definitely highlighted why digital transformation is important, why we have to see how we can use technology better to enhance our daily ways of work and really kind of like daily ways of life. And at Microsoft, we think about digital transformation across four levers as such. One of them is around how do we engage customers. Certainly in my case, in my conversation with my customer being the different provinces, we often spend a lot of time thinking about how do we engage citizens in a more meaningful way, finding ways to deliver services, and finding also opportunities to deliver, more importantly, e-services and digitizing the available services to increase access for citizens. So this concept of really engaging customers and finding new ways to listen to them and providing services that are meaningful to them is really, really key and important. Another key pillar is around the empowerment of employees. Employees need a space to be more collaborative. I think the lockdown has certainly highlighted this, with the need for people to work remotely and still to be able to be productive, knowing that they're secure. One of the key elements here that I'm particularly passionate about is also how do we increase access to employees with physical disabilities and really kind of building this digitally inclusive ecosystem. Another key element for transformation is around the optimization of operations, right? This is kind of something that's really important for organizations that are looking to be nimble, that are looking to be agile, organizations that are looking to save costs in their operations, to like streamline, and of course, to once again provide more secure environments for their employees. Another key element is around the transforming of products and services, and being able to provide services to citizens and customers that really enhance their experience. At the center of it, we see intelligence and artificial intelligence and ultimately data playing a key part, right? We are seeing that we're receiving these feedback or rather signals coming from all the elements for transformation. And it's really about how do organizations, developers, small businesses make use of these signals to be able to react better on that transformation journey. And really it's about how do we find systems and mechanisms to capture digital signals better, right? For instance, if you think about IoT sensors here, if you think about different mechanisms for listening to your customer on social media, or perhaps something as simple as creating surveys to be able to collect data and responses from your employees in the product management and product development lifecycle to how do we empower our customers and organizations and citizen developers to really kind of get these signals and apply insights to them, sometimes in real time, right? Using different models and like training these models with the data that they're receiving to be able to get better insight, and quite importantly, empowering them to be able to act upon those signals. I think this kind of segues well and provides a clear case for why the cloud can be a valuable tool. At Microsoft, we see the cloud not only kind of as a storage, networking, and compute facility, but really about the impact that it can deliver across the organization. If you think about the modern workplace and M365 that employees are using in their daily work, or researchers and students too, we are building in services to enhance the ability and productivity of employees, students, and knowledge workers through the M365 suite. And we're building in artificial intelligence capabilities that everybody can use, right? So it's really about democratizing the intelligence that's available and the power of the cloud. One of the things I'm going to focus on today really is around what we see at the bottom of the stack, what is the Microsoft Azure Cloud, right? So traditionally, I think a lot of us, when you think cloud, this is kind of where we focus. But I just wanted to highlight to you that there's multiple cloud platforms that one can leverage, and artificial intelligence and ability to analyze data exists throughout. But within Microsoft Azure in particular, it is built really kind of on the best standards for identity, security, management and compliance too, right? So if you think around the security element, you would be well aware that we're not all security experts, right? But we want to be able to develop applications and systems in such a manner that we can leverage the best available security frameworks that are available. And I think this is precisely what Azure provides, right? You can be quite comfortable to know that your data is secure, that your networks are secure, making use of the native tools that are available within the cloud, within the Microsoft Azure cloud. Identity too, right? If you're using Azure Active Directory or a multitude of other platforms to be able to identify your users, you can rest assured that the best in security technology will be built in there, and also you're able to speak to your customer and reach them in a manner that's similar or familiar to them rather. And once again, we make sure that we give you the tools to be able to enforce various compliance standards, whether that's GDPR or some of the POPIA standards, right? Or build your own standards too and modify those in a matter that suits you. Within the Microsoft Azure Cloud, I want to focus on the data platform. And really, these are a collection of services and tools that allow you to build out solutions to suit your need. And really, instead of kind of starting from scratch, you're able to use some of the templates that are available there. These systems and services have been built out to be reusable, to be very accessible, and really for you to be able to build knowing that you've got the best in grade services that are underlying your solution, and use these as building blocks to be able to build out really anything that you can imagine. I want to focus quite a bit, if you look in the center right of the screen around the artificial intelligence suite, right? And there's a multitude of services there. One that's particularly close to my heart is Azure Machine Learning. And I'll also touch a bit on the cognitive services from there as well. So ultimately, to really begin on this journey is about thinking hard about where do you find yourself and where are you trying to go to, right? And we're seeing a lot of researchers and users who are using descriptive analysis tools to really kind of analyze the existing data that they have, to collect more data, and ultimately to look at ways of growing along the maturity curve to turn that into more meaningful insight. And this is where we're seeing some of the diagnostic tools. I mentioned some of the Azure machine learning tools there, which would be used also for predictive analysis using some of the models that are inbuilt. And really, we have a rich set of a variety of models that you can utilize there. You bring your data and you train them. You train your model against the data to optimize it, to be able to reach some of your prescriptive analysis and build foresight from that. The various services that exist within our cloud, including tools for BI and reporting that allow you to analyze data and visualize it in meaningful ways, right? I think many of the folks who are on the call may be familiar with some of the tool sets that are available in Power BI, which is really kind of an accessible visualizing tool, particularly for folks who've used Excel and PowerPoint before. Their entry path using Power BI becomes very, very simple. And it's got really kind of, it's infused and with rich AI capabilities, and integrates well with Azure Synapse as well, some of our, which is a really powerful analytics engine that allows you to build out real-time BI. And as I'd mentioned before, the Azure Machine Learning natively integrates with Synapse and Power BI to make you to perform really complex analysis, and really it's a best-in-class data science tool. And one thing I like about the machine learning services as well is a small piece of it called the Machine Learning Studio, which is a drag and drop tool that allows really kind of the entry level data scientist or a citizen data scientist to be able to use the models and train the models using this drag and drop tool. And it's quite extensible too, right? So as your skills improve as a citizen developer, you're able to use to connect to Juniper notebooks to be able to really kind of break down the models and be able to refine them further there. So it's really about how do we provide access, and how can the cloud be a tool that allows researchers and developers with an easy access and really kind of a really fast time to value mechanism for them to deliver real meaningful and impactful results from their work. I also mentioned earlier the cognitive services that are available there. We've got a large suite of Azure cognitive services, really kind of ranging from speech, language, vision, and decision. And this makes up a large part of our artificial intelligence suite. And we have the most comprehensive pre-trained models there that allow really kind of even the entry-level citizen developer to make use of the best-in-class tools for computer vision, for speech-to-text, for text analytics, right? So I recently built out Twitter sentiment analysis, a tool using text analytics. And what you get out of the box is really quite comprehensive. And I think for folks who are looking to deliver quickly and really get results quickly, using the native built services really allows you to develop in record time. One of the things that the panel asked me to also kind of speak about is the entry path, right? So I suppose many folks on the call may be students and may be wondering how can they learn more about the services, and like how can they access more of these services? We have a very comprehensive certification path, really kind of starting at the fundamental level, giving you the AZ900, which is really kind of the fundamentals of the cloud, also looking at Azure AI fundamentals as well. And you build upon that, you know, as you kind of go for more in-depth and more specialized skill set at the associate level. If your career path will go towards being a data scientist, you then kind of go for that Azure Data Scientist DP100, but really the choice is up to you for the path that you want to follow. And if you go to Microsoft Learn, we do have all the tools that allow you to be able to learn and prepare for these certificates, and it's absolutely free, right? So if it is the case that you do not want to search for the certificate, but really want to gain the knowledge, on Microsoft Learn, you will have really the best-in-class tools, tutorials, notebooks for you to be able to absorb the knowledge there as you embark upon this journey. Yes, I'd like to leave it there and open up for some questions.
Okay, thank you, Ofentse. I think you can stop sharing the screen. And I would like to invite Creswell. If you can switch on your camera and your mic on. Thank you, gentlemen, for the presentations. I think what you have been able to share with us is the sort of challenges that one faced. And Creswell, you did show us on what the universities faced, yeah. and also during that process, what went into the thought process on what are some of the things that they will have to give up, and what are some of the things that they will want to keep. And with Ofentse, with all the various aspects that we can be able to find on Azure, I think that's a comprehensive a suite of services that one can be able to get. So what still remains from my audience and myself is in this process. I think that the main things that you also highlighted, Creswell, was what the decision on what should I be investing in, and showing us the issues of where do you want your labor to be focusing on? So I have gone through the stats, and I realized that during the lockdown pandemic, one thing that I saw is that there is 40% of companies that accelerated their move to cloud. And the stat says most companies in South Africa already have got cloud in their strategy. And we saw that 40% because of the pandemic accelerated their move on those strategies. So I think maybe on this and maybe from Ofentse, if you can highlight what were those peaks that you saw that could contribute to this 40% of adoption during the lockdown?
Yes, definitely. If I may, certainly some of the larger projects that I worked on, particularly at the beginning of the lockdown, was around how do we empower our customers to find ways to work and continue kind of on this business continuity spectrum and be able to collaborate and be productive. And Microsoft Teams was one of the tools that we were using there. And I also just want to add that I don't often see it as there's kind of like this linear move of moving from on-prem to cloud. I think that reverse is also equally as valuable, right? So building in the cloud, but building for on-prem, right? And using the tools, perhaps some of the development tools that are available to you on the cloud to be able to rapidly build, but still with the intention of deploying on-prem. So I think this kind of distinction of cloud versus on-prem is not always useful. I think that thinking around this hybrid infrastructure probably makes a lot more sense, and I've seen as a lot of value to our customers.
Okay. No, thank you for that. And maybe this one will be more from Creswell, but also Ofentse, if you've got an answer, you can also chip in. But I think at the end of the day, the decision for the CIOs who are in the audience here, it's all going to end up in rands and cents. And maybe looking at that in your case study, Creswell, what did you find in terms of the savings that the institutions were making in taking up some of their services to the cloud?
Okay, well, it's actually a multifaceted question or multifaceted answer there. One of the things, obviously, is traditional calculations on cloud versus infrastructure often dwells only on the infrastructure, and I think that's probably flawed in some way, because there's also the actual cost of labor or people's time that they're in managing the infrastructure. Number one, and then secondly also is the cost in time that it costs to get that service up and running.
Okay, I think you are spot on. I think those are some of the things that people might not take into consideration. And I've got a few seconds. And Ofentse, okay. What do you sell to people? How much do they save?
Certainly, I think it depends on each scenario, and maybe as well, there's kind of like a big hurdle between cost and value, right? And I think there's certainly use cases where you can derive the most value from the cloud, and I think these are the use cases that you should be focusing on in terms of making use of the cloud first and foremost, right? But it's really something that should be taken on a case-by-case basis, looking at where do you get the most value.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I think you have been very diplomatic. You didn't want to give me numbers, but I think the message was very clear. There's hidden things in terms of the labor cost and also time to solution that one has to look at. And Ofentse, I think you were very brave in coming up with hybrid. I thought you were just going to say move everything to Azure, but I think this is a more realistic way that one has to still invest in a little bit of real estate and also move some of the stuff into the cloud. Thank you very much for your presentations and your participation, and to our audience, thank you for joining us, and hope that you have found some value, and this session helped you to put in some variables that will help you to make your decisions. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you very much.